Good morning, 6AMERS. The 6AMERS began in April of 2020 in the heart of the pandemic. Forming this podcast is our way of extending the community and the message of the community into the world.
Good morning, 6AMers. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our podcast. I am joined by our host, Skye Michiels, and of course myself, co-host Emily Bossert. And today we get to listen to Skye, and our session is on asking him anything. So Skye, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I'm a little nervous to listen to this episode again, but besides that, I'm doing awesome.
I love that. Well, let's start off with a question to you with regards to our word of the month, intention. So Skye, what word describes you when you are at your best?
Fun.
Fun.
When I'm at my best, I am fun. Like, I am just big smile on my face, loads of energy, doing something active or, food or wine or anything that's fun. And when I'm operating at my best, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether I'm teaching or coaching or working or playing. If I'm having fun, that's like my ultimate goal in every day that I wake up.
Well, you sure did pour on the fun in this Ask Me Anything interview. And what I want to say before we talk about what really impacted me was you influence so many people, Skye, on a daily basis. I know you know that because you hear it, but think about all of the people that don't share with you on a daily basis. You are one of those people who influences all of us on a daily basis, and I feel so lucky to call you my brother.
Oh, well, I'm humbled, Emily, and, the opportunity to create sparks, so to speak, of inspiration, to think of all of the people over the 2.5 years or so that we've been doing this who heard a line on an interview or read something in a book or heard your meditation, and where that inspiration went. It just sort of gives me chills to think about the unknown that we've created. And it's just been the absolute pleasure of a lifetime to do this with you and to influence all the people that we know about, but more importantly, all the people we don't know about.
So true. And I loved, Skye, how you spoke about the people who influenced you in your life during this Ask You Anything session.
Yeah, there's so many people. And, without getting into the specifics of the episode, I think it's really critical at all times to think in this moment, who are the people that are influencing me and in what ways are they influencing me? And my goal as I get older, all I want to do is be surrounded by people like you who influence me in a positive way, a happy way, a fun way. And I encourage everyone, if you have someone influencing you in a not fun way or in a not positive way, you do need to make changes in your life to at least create boundaries around that person, because sometimes we can't eliminate that person from our life, right? But sometimes we can create boundaries. And that's sort of the key to moving forward, that if you are struggling with other individuals, you need to either eliminate the connection, eliminate the emotion associated with it, or create a boundary so you can operate in your ultimate happiness in order to live a great life.
Well, we are so excited for this interview. Everyone sit back, grab your popcorn, and get ready for our incredible, one-of-a-kind Skye Michiels.
Thank you.
Skye, let's set the frame, okay. And let's go back to little baby Skye. So I met with Jill Mont yesterday. She's one of our Denver agents, and she was sharing with me this really great podcast. And the first question that this gentleman light and asks his interviewee is, was there a favorite toy or activity that you had, Skye, as a child?
So I'll tell this story because it actually relates to my middle name. And, when you grow up, you don't have a lot of memories. But one of my very first memories, I have an older sister and a younger sister. So my older sister, I had this dog, like some stuffed animal that was a dog. And and it's probably because my mom recalls the story. That's why I remember it. But my parents gave me the name Skye, Skye. My parents were hippies, right? So they were going to name me Skye, Sky. But then the doctor that delivered me, his heritage was from the Isle of Skye off the coast of Scotland. So they gave me the first name Skye. The middle name, they said, oh, we're going to give him the middle name of Benjamin in case he doesn't like Skye. My older sister, who I love dearly, we have a phenomenal relationship. But back then, the way she would tease me is she would call me Skye BM. So Skye bowel movement. And she's like, I'm going to throw your doggy in the toilet, Skye BM. I think I was scarred around my middle name because my older sister would tease me about it growing up. And so I hate the word, and then no offense to any Benjamins on the call, it's a great name. But for me, I just remember, I have this memory of Skye BM.
Oh my gosh, that is too funny. And do you remember the name of that stuffed animal by any chance?
I do not. And I wish I could. I really, really wish that I could, but I can't. So it's so funny, isn't it?
Oh, I love that story. So
Yeah.
Skye, what it was, little Skye, what's similar about you today to who you were as little Skye?
My kindness.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I was like, definitely just super kind and super aware of other people. Do you know what I mean?
Wow, I do.
And I think that's something that I still carry to this day. Like I still have that ability. To, I don't know, meet someone and almost instantly know what they need from me in that moment.
Yeah.
I can meet someone and, there's this ability to connect with people at a really high level. And I think in my childhood, that was definitely something that I had back then, and that I still carry to this day. I think is that level of kindness and connection that I have, with people.
I love that. I love that little Skye had that kindness and was able to see what people needed as well. When you were growing
up, I think it's a middle child syndrome, because
I wondered. Yeah.
I got I have an older sister, younger sister. So I think a little bit of it is always wanting everyone to get along. Like I never want any arguments, no fighting. Everyone to be happy. So I think there's a little middle child syndrome involved in that as well.
The middle child syndrome. Yep. I love it. And Skye, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So when I was really young, I wanted to be a marine biologist because I love animals.
Me too.
Really? Oh my God. Yes. I knew we were at a mother, connected at some time. And then honestly, I always remember I wanted to be a teacher from a very early age. So I remember in 9th grade, I had a teacher, Mr. Wells, and this guy changed my life. And in 9th grade, Mr. Wells was my honors English teacher, and he pushed me so hard. And he taught me really how to become a really good writer. And he gave me really the love of words as well. Like you guys obviously know, I love quotes. I love written words. I love reading. My mom was a librarian, so I grew up around books. Books are a part of me. But Mr. Wells impacted me beyond anything. We grew up poor. And so Mr. Wells had a policy in his class, like you could rewrite any paper and change your grade. But you had to rewrite the whole thing. But we were poor, so we didn't have computer or printer or anything like that. So I literally would have to handwrite. So I'd turn in a paper, he would grade it, it would come back, and he would allow you to, and he was, when I say it was hard, hard. No one got good grades in this class because he really, really pushed you. But he gave you the option to always rewrite your paper. And I always remember, I would hand rewrite these papers maybe 2 or 3 times in order to try to push my grade up. And I remember one night he called my mom. He said, "Hey, are you okay with this? I'm going to drop something off to you guys." And he dropped off a used computer and a printer.
Oh my gosh.
And it was towards the end of the year. And I'll always remember that moment because of the fact. And I actually get a little emotional thinking about it now because of the fact, I still would have handwritten the papers, right? but I remember the impact that that level of kindness had on me,
Yeah.
And I think the lesson to draw from it is that we just never know when one act of kindness is going to change someone's life. And I'm not saying that act of kindness changed my life. Like there's lots of other things, but that was the moment I actually remember that moment saying, I want to be a teacher. The other thing too, is there was something I loved about, just helping people and talking in front of people. And
Yeah.
when you're growing up, you look up to teachers. I also loved history. So I was a huge fan of like history and everything along those lines. So there's something I've always felt compelled around becoming a teacher because of the fact I wanted to, sort of teach history. And if you like history, you have two options. You can either be a lawyer or a politician, right? Or a teacher. there's no in between in that world. So.
Wow. Have you stayed in connection, or did you stay in connection with that teacher?
We did for a while outside of college, and then life sort of happened, and he's not on social media. I think he's actually moved to Florida, so I don't have his address.
Okay.
It's amazing because if you're not on social media, it's like, it's hard to find you if you're not on.
That's right. What a wonderful story. And so, Skye, okay, so that was one of your motivators to get into education. Let's move into college, Skye. What was college, Skye, like? Where did you go? What was it like for you? How was the college experience for you?
So, as I was getting ready to go to college, and I played football, and I was on the crew team in high school. So I'd play football in the fall. I would work in the winter. I'd row crew in the spring, and I'd work in the summer. That was like sort of my cadence, right? And I loved football, and I was fairly good at it, but I wasn't good enough to be Division I. And I really wanted to go to a big school, and I also wrote crew. So I decided, I could go Division I in crew. And I had 3 schools I applied to were UVA, BU, and Syracuse. And I only applied to Syracuse. I only went there as a favor to one of my teachers who her brother-in-law was the head coach there. And if you guys don't know, I'm like a law of attraction, like I'm a gut person. Yes. And I remember walking onto the campus in Syracuse, and it was January, snowy. Like I visited UVA, and it was like gorgeous, like Virginia. If you ever been to UVA campus, it's beautiful. It's incredible. I went to a football game. I go to Syracuse, and it's like the dead of winter. I went to a basketball game. It was fun. But there's something about it that just called to me. And I made the decision to go. And the only time it pays in life to be poor is when you go to college. Because I got a lot of money to go to Syracuse. Syracuse is very expensive. And I got a lot of money. But I had a work-study program as well. So I studied. I was on the crew team, and if anyone knows sport of rowing, it's all year. It's not like football or basketball where you sort of have off seasons. Like we row all year, and it's early mornings, which is probably why it's 6AMERS. I've been getting up early pretty much my entire life. So I'd row in the mornings, or sometimes we'd have 2 practices in a day as well. We'd have like a weight session and an afternoon rowing, and then I would do work study. So I worked 4 days a week as well, and then I full class load as well on top of that.
Wow. Okay.
I'd sort of been in this mode of like doing a lot. Like I almost don't know any different, in some ways. And that was Syracuse. And the thing that impacted me the most is my brothers. I'll call them up there, like my teammates. I had a great education, it was an awesome experience from an educational standpoint. But there's something about waking up with, 30 other guys who become your family. And only reason you get out of bed as a 19 or 20-year-old kid when everyone else is walking in the door, the only reason you get up is because Pat, Jamie, Joe, Chris, I could go down my lineup of my guys, and those friendships you build rowing on the water. Right at this moment, I could pick up my phone and I could call 20 guys and say, I need help. Yeah. And I'd have 20 people flying to Philadelphia to help me if I needed it.
That's incredible, Skye.
Yeah, it was a really life-changing sort of experience for me. And if any of you have kids that are trying to play sport in college, definitely encourage them. It really changed my life.
What a wonderful story. So I imagine it sounds like do you all get together? Do you do any type of reunion?
Yeah, we call, out of college, we called ourselves the family. Like one of us met someone. It was like, all right, when you got to go meet the family. It felt like a thing where it's like, all right, this is, and fortunately, COVID really, I feel a little disconnect, unfortunately, because we got together all the time. And COVID, we haven't had as many get-togethers. And actually, we had a huge reunion right before August of 19, I guess. So it was 30 of us that were all together. It was incredible. It was awesome. It's one of those things we were starting to chat a little bit about trying to pull together some sort of get-together. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Skye, tell us about next steps. After you graduated from college, did you start teaching right away? And what was it like as a young man going into the school system and teaching these young kids?
In Syracuse, you have 2 teaching sessions. You teach one semester, a student teach one semester in the suburbs and then one semester in urban. And there's just something, maybe I related to the suburban setting because I grew up in it. But I wanted to live in a city, but teach in the suburbs. And I also wanted to stay, within a relatively close range to my family in New York. So I knew New York City was out because New York City, you're in New York City. There's no in or out. And if anyone on the call that knows New York City, a teacher's salary in New York City does not go very far. Anyway, it probably gets you a parking spot in New York City.
Oh my gosh.
I knew I wanted to be, so Boston, Philly, New York, DC were like the 3 considerations. And then 2 of my teammates got a job in Philly. So I was like, all right, I'm going to Philly. And I got a great job at a great public high school. I was a history teacher. And I remember, 2 years in, I was like, ooh, as a teacher, you have a scale. So you can see every year what you're going to make. And no matter, I'm an athlete, I'm a driver, I'm a creator. I'm like, all right, like if I work really hard, I can do this. And as a teacher, I could work 12 hours a day, or someone could work just the required 6 hours a day, and we're at the same scale. So there's a little frustration there. So I always remember parent teacher night and Bill Curry. I remember, Bill Curry and Bill's been teaching for 35 years. We sit down and I'm telling him like, man, I love teaching, but God, it's hard to know that every year, like year 10, I feel like I'm going to be making it, that's 10 years away. And yeah, I can piece together some like coaching and like this, but man, how do you do it? And so he's like, well, if I could go back, I would get my real estate license, sell real estate part-time and teach full-time. You get the benefits of both worlds. You sell 4 or 5 houses a year, maybe you work in the summertime, and it sounded like, oh, that's really nice. And then obviously being a teacher, you get benefits, retirement, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, oh, cool. So next day I actually go online, I sign up, and typical Skye, I was like, oh, you could do it over like months. I was like, fuck that. I'm going to do it. There's 2 weekends in a row. You had 2 weekends off, 2 weekends in a row. So I did that, got my real estate license, and started selling part-time. And of course, the competitive side of me is like, oh, well, let's go. I can do more. And so I just started selling, and I was a natural at it. And for anyone that's called, it's like, oh, well, I don't know too many people in my sphere. I moved to Philly knowing 3 people, and yes, and then I got into a school. So then I knew more people in my school. But at the end of the day, I'm not from Philadelphia. And I started building my career just by connecting with the few people I knew. And it very quickly started to explode. And I did 3 years of part-time work. Emily, I remember the moment I decided to become a realtor full-time was I made salary in a month. All these closings. And I took a step back and I'm like, oh my God, I just made my salary in a month. Like,
wow.
And, teaching full time and selling real estate basically full time at that point. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I was very unhealthy, because you're basically on survival mode. So
Oh, yeah.
I remember I'd get Dunkin' Donuts on the way to school. I'd eat either the school lunch, which is probably the worst food you could imagine, or I would get a sub or a hoagie or something, right, from Wawa for any Philly people, right? I would get a sub from Wawa on the way to school. Then at night, I go and work real estate all night, and then whatever I could get fast food wise on the way home, just to survive, Then I get home, I teach, or I'd grade papers or do whatever.
Oh my gosh, Skye.
And then the weekends would come. It's not like you get the weekends back as a teacher. It's like, oh great, it's the weekend, I can have fun. No, weekends would come and I would work all weekend. So I remember it was a very, very unhealthy year of my life in 2005.
Were you starting a family at that point as well?
Let's see. So my ex-wife, who we met in 2004. And this is a guy version of the story. Dated.
Oh yeah, tell us the guy version.
Yeah, broke up for a year, and then got back and dated for a year and got married. So, that was the year I did break up with her. Because I didn't have any time for myself. And so we did have a year of like a gap, and then we got back together. And got married 2007. So that was like the beginning. It wasn't starting a family necessarily. It was actually, I was very single in that 2005 year. But at the end of the day, it was definitely like all I was doing was working full-time in real estate or teaching full-time. So then when I went full-time, we sort of reconnected and got back together.
Wow, that is so Skye of you to just go in full throttle into real estate while teaching full-time as well and grading papers in the evening and doing real estate on the weekends. What would you say? So when you first started in real estate, did you join a team? What did it look like for you in the very beginning?
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, and when I started, my goal was just to sell 3 or 4 houses, right?
Right.
Like, I didn't get into it thinking like, I'm going to crush it,
Yeah.
So I was just an individual agent, and I was really lucky because in my office, I was the youngest guy by 20, 30 years. So the great thing is they all sort of took me under their wing. Like I had all these experienced agents at tons. My manager literally is almost like a one-on-one training because all the agents in the office were older, and he was like, "Oh, this is great! Like I get to actually train you." So Fran Truex, I'm still friends with him to this day. And I'll always remember my first broker. I walked in the office and he said, "Yeah, we had our conversation." He's like, "There's one thing and one thing only you need to know about real estate. It's like, be honest. If you're honest, you're going to make money." He's like, "You're going to lose a deal here and there." And it's like one of those conversations that sticks with you your entire life.
Yes.
And he's no longer here, but at the end of the day, like Paul Gallagher, I always remember that conversation as the beginning of my real estate sort of journey. And so when I started out, I didn't have any real plan. So I was an individual agent, part-time, and then I always was part-time as I built. When I left to go full-time, I was adamant not to be a team. And
really?
Teams at that point were sort of new. Like there were a lot of teams. It was a very individual business as well. But I always felt like no one could do it better than me. So why would I form a team?
Yep. Oh yeah.
and not to be egotistical, but it was like, no, like the Skye way is the best way. So over the years, like I hired admin very early on. So I definitely hired admin early on, and I actually formed a partnership in 2006 because I did need help. He's still to this day one of my best friends. But that partnership, was only about a year long. And at the end of the day, I wanted to do things my way. And a lot of that came back to ego. And I always remember one of my greatest lessons around ego and the danger of ego and the negativity of ego is the fact that in 2011, I had a goal of being the #1 individual agent in my company, which at the time was Coldwell Banker Preferred. And it was probably 1,000 agents, and their teams in individual categories, right?
Yes.
And I did it. And I always remember, award ceremony, this is like big eagle. I still have the eagle, it's like this big trophy. And I got really drunk that night too, celebrated. It was awesome. It was like this great accomplishment. So 2012, it's like, all right, do I form a team, which I needed to do because I was stressed out and I was doing so much, or do I stay an individual? And I made the decision to stay an individual. Do you know why, Emily?
Why?
Because I wanted to win that _1 agent award.
Oh.
And I knew if I formed a team, I was not going to be the #1 team. And so obviously the moral of the story is I did it. I won that stupid trophy when I could have made probably 100, who knows how much money I lost.
Right.
How much detriment I did to myself. And I did it for one reason and one reason only, and that was my fucking ego.
Oh, that ego.
God.
I tell you what, Skye, I just recently, you and I were chatting on the phone and I don't remember what it was about, but you said to me at that time, you said, don't compliment me anymore. I don't want this to go to my head.
Well, I think it's critical because when we make decisions using our ego, we're usually making decisions that are unhealthy for us. And and the other thing we're making decisions about is we're making decisions about what other people think about us. Like, why does me having a trophy as a realtor, all right, if I'm playing Little League, that can matter.
Yes.
All right, okay, like, cool. I won the Little League championship. Cool. If I'm playing, softball, a men's softball league, cool, go get a trophy. We're selling real estate. We're building businesses. I have all these awards from my career there that mean they just sit in my basement and they mean nothing. And the reality of ego is that ego is really driven by other people's opinions. Because if other people didn't have any opinions, we really wouldn't have any ego. You have to sort of take a step back and say, am I doing this because I care about what other people think?
Yeah.
And the way I try to live my life now and the lessons I've learned, I call it high confidence, low ego, right? So I'm very confident, as probably you guys on this call know. There's nothing I don't think I can do, but I always want to keep that ego in check and know that my journey is never over. I will never stop learning. I will never stop growing. I'm never going to stop working on it myself. And feedback, criticism, people, saying stuff like, hey, I could do this better. If I get pissed at that, that's my ego. If I take that and say, let me learn from this, that's my confidence, right? That's my being. That's my higher self saying, let me hear what this person, I'm not saying I need to agree with that, right? I'm not saying that I'm going to, this person's criticizing me like, I'm a horrible person. What I'm going to say is, all right, let me listen to this instead of reacting. Let me hear what they're saying. And then is there a piece in here that I can take some ownership of? Or is it the kind of thing where, you know what, that's their problem. That's their ego talking. And that's why they're upset. And when we make decisions based around ego, almost always you're making decisions based around what other people think, not based around what is the right thing, what we think, what makes us happy. And I joke around, you've heard me say, I live in this bubble of happiness, right? My challenge to everyone on this call is if your happiness is dependent upon conditions, you're never going to be happy. So if I'm only going to be happy if this person calls me back, if I'm only going to be happy if I do this, if I make $100,000, I'm only going to be happy if, this person that I'm trying to relate it to real life,
sure,
you're dating or you're in a marriage. I'm only going to be happy if my partner is happy. When we create conditions around happiness, we are always going to be unhappy. And power emerges when we create conditions. The only condition is us and finding happiness internally and gratitude and all the stuff we talk about in the 6AMERS, right? I wore this t-shirt right? Self-love lives here. Like, the only time you will ever find fulfillment in a relationship is when you fulfill yourself and when you love yourself. Because when you don't love yourself and when you don't find fulfillment here, you're going to just be searching for it outside of you, and you will never find it. And that was a lesson I had to learn, really, really difficult. Like, I'm divorced, and happily, I call it happily divorced, because I've worked very, very hard at creating a beautiful co-parenting relationship with my ex, and she still gets mad at me. She's still, there's still there's still the reasons we're divorced, right?
Of course.
But when we were married, I walked on eggshells because I was always trying to make her happy. And I didn't recognize how miserable that was making me.
Wow, what an insight, Skye. And I think something that you said that I thought was really interesting, the ego tends to lurk in our shadows. So the mere fact that your trophies now live in your basement in the dark makes absolute sense. So your ego, tell us about what it looks like now, because we all have an ego. It's there. We have it for a reason. Tell us about what it looks like now. Like, when do you catch it? Like, when the ego starts really coming up for you, how do you pivot and bring it back to self-love and being here? What does that look like for you?
Almost always it'll occur when I find myself getting angry. So when I get angry, usually my ego is involved. And I heard it on, once again, you guys, we started the call, you guys are talking about the reviews and all this stuff. And it's like so easy to get angry at other people, especially when they do stuff that is like negative towards us. And anger is my trigger. Usually when I feel that anger at something or someone, is usually my ego coming up and playing it, because that anger is usually my ego is being triggered, right? I'm being threatened. An agent is upset that I didn't call them back, and I'm angry, but they don't understand how much I'm doing. I got this going on, I got that going on. Like, fuck them,
right?
Like that. That's my ego coming. I'm not saying that those excuses, those reasons aren't valid. However, my ego has to be toned down because of the fact that people can get mad at me, and that's okay, right? Totally. They can get upset with me, and that's okay. And Lance Pendleton uses this line all the time: I can't be all things to all people at all times. And as realtors, as people, what we try to do, we try to be all things to all people at all times. And when I try to be that, that's my ego. Because inevitably, if I try to be all things to all people at all times, I am definitely going to let people down. And for me, when I feel that anger come up, that's when, honestly, Emily, like, I've literally listened to some of your 1 minute. I will do like a 1 minute breath or 1 minute meditation and just try to calm down. And then the other thing I recommend you get into, then I'll try to go into gratitude. I'll be like, you know what? I'm so grateful that this person is highlighting that they have a need. And then I'm so grateful I have a team of people at Compass or around me that can help support me. Because I can text some of my co-managers, hey, can you call this person back? I'm in the weeds. I can't get back to them and they need help. It's very similar to my crew team, right? Our region, we're very supportive of each other. And I'll have 10 people that'll say, I'll get on that right now and I'll help out. And the ego would say, fuck them, I'm not going to call them back. And they can go let their problem be their problem, right?
Right.
That's not creating. And then the final piece is I ask myself the question, and for anyone that's feeling anger at a situation, ask yourself this question: what is the powerful outcome I want to create from this interaction? And if you feel anger and then your ego comes into play, I can almost guarantee you will not create a powerful outcome. You'll create an outcome. It's not going to be powerful. So the key to all of this is feeling the anger and the ego come up. Take a step back, pause, breathe, calm. All is well. I have these mantras I repeat in my mind. Gratitude, and find gratitude in everything. Like I said, I'm grateful that this person raised their hand and said, I need help. Did they do it in a manner that I like? No, that's okay. And then I go into what is the most powerful outcome I want to create? Because Emily, you said it in the beginning, I create my own reality. No one else, I do. And then I say, I'm going to create a powerful outcome of this person getting the help they need. And it doesn't need to come from me. It's going to come from someone else, but I'm going to facilitate that. And that's, I guess, how I try to manage and mitigate like that whole process of, sort of the ego popping up. And everyone on this call, we all have it. I have it. It's all natural, but how you manage it is what matters. And Emily, I remember I went to California and I did this training.
Yes.
And I'll just recall this because it really had a big impact on me. In this training, they talked about we're all human beings. And your ego is your human side. Your human side is your caveman, the piece of your brain and your emotions that protects you. Because all your ego is designed to do is protect you, right? So my ego comes up, they're angry at me, ego comes up. That's my brain saying, run away from that situation because that's emotionally dangerous to me, right? That I'm going to be vulnerable. I could be yelled at. I could be fill in the blank. So that's my human side, right? And that's normal. We're human beings. My being is my higher power, my ability to rise above that human and be a being that will create my own reality. And that way of imagining it, we're always going to be human beings. Every situation you decide whether you're going to operate on your human side or your being side. And ego is always on the human side. So,
Skye, that was so well put. And I'm thinking about, the ego either brings up or mostly brings up either the fight or the flight, or we get paralyzed. And it's interesting to hear you talk about you go into the fight and that's your trigger. That's how you know. I will go into flight. So it's very different. But what you said, I think, is important because you have to let that emotion flow through you and not get stuck in you. A lot of us will just shove it down instead of letting it flow through. And that's exactly what you're saying. Just breathe through it. Let it move. Let that emotion move through you. That's such great insight for all of us here.
And Emily, too, I guess I also want to stress, you also want to feel it, right? It's okay to.
You have to, right?
I call being in the suck. And sometimes when you're in the suck, instead of putting a happy face sticker on it, being like, yay, everything's great, and I'm staring at some people on this call that I know. Instead, you just embrace it. And you say, you know what? I'm in it.
Yeah. I'm
in the fight. And the Brene Brown or the Man in the Arena speech, right?
Right.
Teddy Roosevelt. Man, I always want to be in the fight. I always want to be fighting. Because that means I'm growing. That means I'm living. If you're protecting yourself and you're staying on the sidelines and you're just lobbing comments on people's Instagram and Facebook and, doing that, you're on the sidelines. And Brene Brown says it so beautifully, I don't have time for people on the sidelines. Guys, what? You guys are all 6AMERS? Because you guys raised your hand and said, I want to be in the fight. And we're all going to be in the suck at times. And that's okay, right? And you don't happy face sticker it. You don't say this does not exist because it does exist. And the minute you accept it is the minute then you can start walking through that process of dealing with it and acknowledging it. But the main thing is you don't want to stay in the suck.
That's right.
But you have to acknowledge it. You got to say, I'm here. Now I'm going to move forward, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where you became. And I always say this, what is the most powerful outcome I'm going to create? And that's what you move towards.
I love that. And I love you talking about moving forward, Skye. What is on your bucket list, Skye? Tell us about what's next for Skye. What excites you? What can you not wait for? And I'm talking about 2022. I'm talking about even bigger scope future. What's on your agenda?
Yeah. My bucket list guy, you wouldn't even want to see it because there's so
I
much.
do. I'm
But,
so curious.
so on the East Coast call, it's probably about a month ago, I interviewed the CEO of Big Brother, Big Sister, a guy named Marcus Allen. And Marcus on the call was like, every year he creates a challenge or something that he does. And that previous year, he rode across the country on a bicycle, and to raise money for Big Brother, Big Sister. So he was on the call. He's like, his next thing he's going to do is he's going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I love nature. I love hiking. I love all that stuff, but I've never like climbed a mountain. So that's on my bucket list it's still being planned, but I was on the call. I committed to it on the call. And I don't know exactly how much money I want to raise, but I'm going to try to set a goal to raise a shit ton of money for Big Brother, Big Sister, and use some of the influence, just to be able to make a difference, make an impact on people.
That's so exciting for you. Skye, I know we have so many questions. I see them coming in on the chat. Oh, Rhea just raised her hand.
Sorry, I've been like holding this the whole time, but I'll keep it professional. But I just wanted to know your Myers-Briggs, because you said you're into a lot of different things, and so am I.
What's Myers-Briggs?
Skye, the ENFP, which is moi.
I don't know. I don't follow any of that stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I've heard of it. I'm sort of kidding. Partly, guys, I never liked personality, like discs and all this stuff. And like as a KW guy too, anyone in the KW organization, like KW is all about like disc KPAs, all the da. And I didn't like it just because I didn't like labels. I never wanted to have a label. I never wanted to give people a label. I did a training. I'm going to bring it out to the West Coast as well. And I did a training with this guy who created birds to represent the discs. And that made sense to me. So he's like, there's eagles, doves, owls, and parrots. And obviously I'm a parrot. With a little in there. But at the end of the day, that was the first time I ever said this makes sense. So yeah, anyone on the call, I don't know my disc profile. I don't know anything, but I am a parrot. So his name is Merrick Rosenberg.
Okay, who else has a question for Skye? I did receive a workplace question this morning, and I can't remember who sent it to me, but they asked Skye, what is your why?
Caring about people. Getting a lot of clarity on this, and it always is constantly shifting. But when I created my team's name was called Real Estate with Heart for a reason, because of the fact that I wanted my business to represent caring about people. So, and the reason your why is so critical, guys, is because of the fact that every decision I made, I would relate it back to my why. When you get away from that, like, so for example, at one point in my career, I was paying $8,000 a month for Zillow leads. If anyone on this call works internet leads, you sort of got to be a little, you got to be a little tough with those guys. They don't trust you. They don't like you. And it's very hard to show you care about them until you really work them and win them over, which is very, very difficult. So I'm sitting there and spending $8,000 a month on Zillow leads, trying to make it work. And I knew my why. My why was caring about people. And then I took a step back. It's like, oh yeah, like, duh. This is not, in order to convert those leads, you can't really care about them. You gotta, it's a numbers game a little bit. I'm not saying you can't care about internet leads, right? But it's a numbers game. You got to call each one that calls. You got to call them over and over and over, be annoying, and really convert them. It's a hard conversion I'm not used to. And I canceled it after I was like this aha moment of, oh yeah, my why is caring about people. And that's my big why. That's all I want to do all day is care about people.
I love it. I love it. I can see the chat coming through, and people are asking about the 6 at 6. They want me to do the 6 at 6 with you. So let me get to the question.
Emily, can I just put in this one plug?
Yes, please.
I put it in the email last night, but I also, over the last 2 weeks, and I don't know if Kelly Kaz is on the call. She helped solidify this, but
yes,
I'm on a mission, and my mission is to shift everything we do at Compass away from teaching in silos and educating in silos and shifting everything into teaching workflows. And by workflows, you guys out right now, and put this in the chat, you guys right now don't think of CRM, marketing center, tasks, action plans. You think, I need to do an open house this weekend. What do I need to do? I have a lead that just arrived. What do I need to do? I have a deal that just went under contract. What, right? Workflows. The reality is, when you think of an open house you have to do, there's 8 tools you're using or should use for that open house. But what we do at Compass, and it's no fault of ours, right? It's just how we sort of built it. We teach, hey, use your CRM. Here, use Marketing Center. Instead of saying, here's your open house flow. Here are the tools that will help you in this workflow. I am going to go on a mission to teach, to get us to pivot and start teaching workflows. So we stop talking about tools and we start talking workflows. And in the chat, or I'm going to ask you guys a favor to email me any workflows you can think of. So what I want to do is brainstorm as many as I possibly can. And then under each one, start listing the tools that help you within those workflows. And now, instead of teaching you how to drive a car by teaching you how to use a radio and use the trunk and use a seatbelt, now we're going to teach you, all right, here's how you drive the car. Here's how you parallel park. Here's how you change the oil. I don't know, whatever it might be, we can create on that analogy. So I didn't want to just put that out there.
I think it would be a great idea to have a 6AMers around this, and we brainstorm what those workflows are.
Yep, I agree.
I love it.
Yeah, we can put them in a spreadsheet and start working it out.
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, I love it. Okay, Skye, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Thought we had done the 6 at 6 with you, but we haven't. So
I don't think we ever have.
Skye, how would you describe your most perfect day?
Oh, God. My most perfect day would be waking up at 6 a.m. and I'm not kidding, like doing a 6 a.m. call with you, Emily, and 1,000 people.
Yes.
That would be my most perfect morning. Then I would go get an awesome workout with 3 or 4 of my old teammates. We would go crush a workout somewhere. Barry's Orange Theory, whatever it might be. Then I would come home. My kids would wake up. All this would happen before my kids woke up. Like, this is not real, so I'm going to give you my perfect day. We would have an amazing breakfast. We'd take my dog for an awesome hike somewhere. We'd come back. Then we would go to the beach. I'd spend all day at the beach. And then my favorite time at the beach is when the sun is going down. And you're drinking a beer and you're playing beach games. And then I would go back to this amazing beach house, and there would be a massive party going on with all of my friends, their kids, everyone that I knew. And there'd be a massive party going on. And that's my perfect day.
Skye, this is so doable. This sounds like it should be your next birthday party.
I agree. March.
I love it.
We're doing it in March.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, if you could time travel to any place or any time in the future or in the past, when and where would you go?
So I'm a history buff, and I'm fascinated by the Great Depression and World War II, and that little time frame because of the fact that, like, what our grandparents and maybe our parents went through.
Yeah.
Our great-grandparents, like, we don't deal with shit right now.
Right?
Like, we're complaining about wearing a mask. We're complaining about wearing a mask when we could have been at war, and like my friends are dying, and you don't have a job for years, and that time was I grew up in Hyde Park, New York, where FDR is. That was where his library is his presidential home, I guess. And the way that FDR sort of led through that time frame, he got our country through that time frame, and I just think he's one of the most amazing presidential. So I wouldn't want to live through it. I want to just observe it, right?
Yeah.
Living through it would be pretty tough, but
wow, Skye.
Yeah.
You just made me think about, my grandfather lived through the Depression and he had 8 sisters that were older than him. They didn't have anything, so they had to dress him in dresses.
Yeah.
And he wore girls' shoes that were too small for him. And we think about the way you put it into the perspective with wearing masks. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Crazy.
That is crazy. What is one thing that you would love to master?
So I would love to master guitar. I've never played. I love music. Like I listen to music all the time. I love anything. This morning I was listening to reggae after I had a great call this morning with Lance. I had Bob Marley on. I was like dancing in the car on the way to work. Like I could listen to my pop. Like I could listen to the only thing I don't like twangy country. So I apologize to any Nashville people on the call. But I don't like twanging, but I would love to be able to play guitar. And I cannot sing. But I would love to be able to play guitar and sing in a bar. That was like my dream.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that is so great. All right, Skye, what is one of either your favorite books or your favorite movies that you go back to time and time again?
Books are so hard to pick because I have so many, but I'll go back to 2 books. One is called The Compound Effect. Which is very easy read. We read it in 6AMERS. The other one is called Extreme Ownership by Jocko, and that's the greatest leadership book I've ever read. Movies, classic guy movie, Braveheart. Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's like history, Scottish. Like I just love Braveheart. So.
Oh, that makes me want to watch that movie again. All right. I think we've asked you this, but I can't even remember who it was. Who was your first childhood celebrity crush?
It still is Elizabeth Shue.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Total girl crush here, too.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Skye, what is the first thing you're going to do after this call?
So I am hopping to my next call because in Philly, every Thursday at 10 a.m., we do a collaboration call. We've been doing it from the beginning. And so every single Thursday we do an open collaboration call. And we very rarely have an agenda. We just get on a call, talk real estate, whatever topic is coming up for us at that moment. So
that's a great idea. I love it. Skye, this has been so incredible. I mean, I can't believe we've taken this long to actually do this interview with you, but it was so meaningful. And I feel like, I'm sure all of us feel this way. We love you in such an amazing way, but just getting to know you and who you were and how you've grown up is so meaningful for us to all hear.
Yeah. And it's easy to hide behind questions, right? So
yeah, it totally is.
It's very easy to hide. So it's definitely, it was awesome.
Thanks for listening to the 6AMERS podcast. If you liked what you heard on this episode, we would love to hear from you. So leave a comment and review. And don't forget to subscribe. For more information on our 6AMERS community, guests, book recommendations, and more, visit our website at the number 6AMERS.com, the6amers.com. We also invite you to follow us on Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and fun. See you next time.